Greetings to one and all who have joined the live stream. Today we are gathered here for the fourth expert talk in A.K. Singh Literary Club, which is organized by Department of English Bhaktakavi Narsimha Mehta University, Junagadh. The Literary Club was inaugurated on 19th March 2025 in the loving memory of late Dr. Avdesh Kumar Singh sir by the department. It was done in the esteemed presence of Dr. A.K. Singh's wife, Dr. Kiran Singh Madam, who is also the advisor of Sri Aurobindo Integral Life Center, Oro University, Surat. Our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Atul H. Bapudra sir, Dr. Ravi Jala sir from Saurashtra University, and Professor Dr. Firoz Sheikh. My name is Varun Pandya, currently a research scholar at department. I gladly welcome you all in today's session. I cannot wait and feel intrigued to introduce you all with a great academician and social activist, Dr. Sandeep Kumar Yadav sir. If I introduce him briefly, Sandeep sir possesses a first-class master's degree with a BHU gold medal and a doctorate from Banaras Hindu University. He possesses over 17 years of pedagogical expertise, specializing in varieties of subjects like contemporary literary theory, film studies, and bhasha poetry. He has illuminated various academical discourses by writing 11 research papers in esteemed journals. He has served as a permanent faculty member at several Indian universities for over 3.5 years, which also includes the Center for English Studies at the Central University of Jharkhand in Ranchi. Currently, he is teaching at Shyamlal College, evening session, University of Delhi. He was appointed as a permanent faculty at a college of Banaras Hindu University but didn't join. He has served as the secretary of his college staff council twice. In addition to his eager academic pursuits, Sandeep sir also participates in all social activities aimed at societal advancement. Other noteworthy fact is that he has authored 4 books. He completed his PhD research on the poetry of Dom Morris, marking the inaugural doctoral dissertation on the writings of Dom Morris. He has compiled the folktales of Chota Nagpur, which were published under the Nagpuria folktales. He has toured many European cities for academic purposes. Dr. Sandeep Yadav is a distinguished political commentator and media figure. He also contributes to newspapers and participates in television debates. Apart from this all merits, he has organized 5 international conferences and 5 national conferences. Sir is going to deal with the topic entitled as For Devotion to Dissent, Bhakti Poetry's Challenge to Caste Hierarchies and Structural Injustice. I request you, sir, to please begin this session and enlighten us with your knowledge, wisdom, experience in the context of Bhakti poetry.
Thank you, Varun, for my detailed introduction. I'm thankful to Sheikh sir and Dr. Rupa Ben Dangar for giving this opportunity to deliver a lecture in memory of renowned professor, and he was my friend also. I remember meeting him various times. Actually, the theme which I have chosen to deliver the lecture today, actually, I organized international conference in Delhi in National Museum in 2016, and the keynote address giver or the speaker was Professor A.K. Singh. He was a good friend of mine and guru also, though he never taught me, but he helped me in various ways. So this is my tribute to him. This paper is basically when I wrote a mail and a WhatsApp message to him about the conference which was going to organize in National Museum of Delhi near the Parliament in 2016. After seeing the poster and the other things, He was very happy. Immediately messaged me and said, Sandeep, you are organizing a conference which is much needed. He was really very happy. He was very busy. Uh, he was the director in IGNU, pro vice chancellor in IGNU, but even then, he spared time and came for that seminar conference. And after giving the keynote address, he was very happy. And I met him many times in Delhi. And once we were part of a seminar in Anand, Gujarat, we traveled also together from from Baroda to Delhi. And throughout the journey, he was sitting beside me. He was typing all the time for typing his next paper. So he was a man of wisdom, and apart from that, he was a great personality. He was a very loving person. He was a real researcher and a real teacher. We have learned a lot from him. So I pay my tributes to Professor A.K. Singh. It's really a very good opportunity for me um, to remember him through this lecture. So I begin my talk or lecture, which is basically the title of my paper is From Devotion to Dissent. Bhakti poetry's challenge to hierarchies and societal or social structures. Actually, how did Bhakti poetry help in the evolvement of the marginalized? Actually, this is the basic idea which I will deal with in this lecture. So, uh, actually, the Bhakti movement brought about a counter-cultural movement against the dominant, abstruse philosophical speculations, defying the religion and ritual. It assumed the form of protest against the multiple divisive barriers of the society, thus reaching out to a vast majority of people who were hitherto kept outside the rigid framework of Sanskritic tradition. Bhakti means devotional surrender to the Supreme Being. Bhakti doesn't mean that you go and visit all the temples across the country and you declare yourself as a bhakta. Bhakti is devotional surrender to the Supreme Being. The Bhakti movement became popular in 7th to 10th century AD in South India, while the North Indian Bhakti movement had to wait till the invasion of the Turks. This Bhakti movement was the movement of the masses, irrespective of the status, caste, creed, and religion. This was against rigid caste hierarchy, social exclusion, and domination of classical language over the vernacular. The Bhakti movement brought the God out of the temples and scriptures to the heart of the masses. The God was available to everybody out of the temple and the elaborate religious rituals of Sanskrit language. The Bhakti movement was launched against the Buddhist and Jain supremacy in South India. It was heterogeneous in nature. Further, the Bhakti movement developed into two major groups, Saiva Nayanar saints and Vaishnava Alavar saints. The Bhakti saints had to oppose Buddhist, Jain, and Brahminical cultural supremacy. The Alvar saints they worshipped Lord Vishnu, while the Nayanar saints worshipped Lord Shiva. The Brahminical caste hierarchy offered the use of their temples to Alvar saints and the Nayanar saints, use of their temples to the Bhakti saint poets in their fight against the Buddhists and Jains. Brahminical caste hierarchy got itself associated with the radical Bhakti saint poets and demolished the cultural hegemony of the Jains and Buddhists, and they dislodged them from the center. The Bhakti saints of South India were supposed to oppose the caste hierarchy and elaborate expensive and meaningless religious rituals from society. In place of fighting the Brahminical privileges, the Bhakti saints launched criticism and opposition of Buddhists and Jains, who were having a privileged position in the king's court in the then society. The Bhakti saints were not vehemently critical of the Brahminical elite caste hierarchical system. Around 10th century AD, erosion of Bhakti movement began and a time came when there was no difference between the Bhakti movement and the Brahminical movement, and the Bhakti movement got appropriated by the Brahminical caste hierarchy in South India. The Bhakti movement gained bereft of its primary purpose, which was to oppose the exploitative caste hierarchy prevalent as the root cause of the suffering of the populace in the existing society. But it failed to do so. North India had to wait for 400 years of the Bhakti movement to take place in its soil. It took place nearly in the 14th century. The then rulers, Rajputs, had the symbiotic relationship with the Brahmins. Political and moral support was offered to Brahmins by the Rajputs. Brahmins got the patronage of Rajputs, and in return, Brahmins prayed for the Rajputs in the warfare and the continuity of their dynasties. This friendship was hostile to any heterodox movement in North India. The military triumph of the Turks created a rift in the symbiotic relationship between Rajputs and Brahmins. Rajputs were isolated from their subjects, from their people whom they were ruling, and they receded to the countryside. Receded to the countryside. Brahmins were also bereft of the support which they got from the Rajputs in return. After the disruption in this relationship, the heterogeneous movement emerged in the different parts of North India by extraordinary thinkers from a common background. Bhakti poets wanted to get rid of elaborate, expensive, meaningless religious rituals which were making people sick. Bhakti and contemporary Sufi movement emphasized on mysticism and made it their operational site. They undermined the importance of scriptures, Vedas, and classical language. Mysticism was their functional aspect. Bhakti poets venerated personal gods. Some of them were Sagun Bhakti poets, and some of them were Nirgun Bhakti poets. Guru Nanak and Kabir were the protagonists of Nirgun Bhakti, while Tulsi, Surdas, and Mirabai were Sagun Bhakti poets. The eternal spirit was celebrated in the Bhakti movement. This movement was a melting pot regarding religion. This was a significant movement which is known for its inclusiveness. This paper proposes to look into, this lecture proposes to look into the most powerful trend of medieval Indian society between 700 AD and 1800 AD. India's Middle Ages brought about a vibrant tradition of devotional literature of exceptional merit, which dispels the superstitious assumptions of a dark period of India's history. The Bhakti poetry gave rise to regional languages, which we know as Bhasa. Actually, I have known Professor G.N. Devi, who taught as a professor in Baroda University. He's a great scholar and a linguist and a literature. So I have accompanied many times Professor G.N. Devi also, Ganesh Narayan Devi also, uh, uh, in various types of travel actually. So I have got a very good friendship and a kind of help as well from him. Actually he is the person who has given this term Bhasa poetry. Actually, he has coined this term. So the Bhakti poetry gave rise to regional languages. The conception of Bhakti did away with the elite tradition of Sanskrit and accepted the more acceptable expression of the masses. Kabir says that Sanskrit is like the water of a well, stagnant. Bhasa like flowing water. The catchword of Bhakti is that God is there inside every human being. The movement was, in a sense, subaltern, as most of its poets belonged to the so-called lower castes. Bhakti movement was anti-theology and against any conceptual erudition. The power of ancient bhakti poetry in Tamil set in motion what might well be considered a pan-Indian efflorescence. After Tamil, Pampa's great court epics were composed in Kannada in the 10th century. Devotional literature in Kannada, the Vachanas, the sayings of the various saints of the Krishna, Rama, and Shiva cults is well known. Basavanna was born in 1161 and ruled as the Senapati, as the general in the army of Kalchuri King Raja Bijjala, King Bijjala. So he was a poet also and a social reformer. Basmanna was a famous Kannada poet, a Shiva devotee, and a great social reformer. Allama Prabhu, he was from also Kannada origin, wrote great poetry under the grab of religion. Chronologically, Marathi, the close successor of Kannada, became the next venue for bhakti. Gyaneswar was born in 1275 AD, is the first and the foremost bhakti poet in Marathi. In his in his teens, he died very young. He died at the age of 21. He became famous for his poetic contribution to bhakti for Vitthal. Vitthal is another name of Lord Vishnu. Eknath, a saint poet, wrote his short poetic narratives and devotional abhangas. Abhangas are a kind of literary form which are written in praise of the god. And after him, after Eknath, it was Tukaram, who was born in 1608 and died in 1649 AD, whose songs cast a spell all over Maharashtra. And then it was Gujarati in the 12th century. Gujarati poets like Narsi Mehta and Premanand occupy a prominent place in the galaxy of the Vaishnava poets. Afterwards, the sequential order is as follows: Kashmiri, Bengali, Assamese, Manipuri, Oriya, Maithili, Braj, Awadhi. Um, the last three languages, like Maithili, Braj, and Awadhi, come under the umbrella language Hindi. And other words of India. Chandidas, a Bengali poet, is acclaimed as a great genius for the clarity and sweetness of his poems. Similarly, Vidyapati in Maithili created a new poetic language. Jaydev, a Sanskrit lyric poet of the 12th century, influenced a large number of Bengali devotional poets like Govind Das, Balaram Das, and others. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was born in 1486, died in 1533, a great Bengali saint, helped Vaishnavism to turn into a religious and literary movement, made it a living faith, and became a source of a never-ending inspiration to a host of Bengali poets, including Jiva Goswami. Sankardev was born in 1449, passed away in 1568, an Assamese devotional poet, used plays, plays means Ankiya Natak, Ankiya Nat, and Kirtan, religious songs, to propagate Vaishnavism and became a legend in Northeast India, in Eastern India. Similarly, Jagannath Das is a legendary divine poet in Oriya who wrote Bhagavat, the story of Krishna, which has which has spiritually united all the people of Odisha and created a living consciousness. Muslim and Hindu saint poets of rural Bengal, known as Bauls, um, created oral poetry of divine intoxication under the influence of both Vaishnavism and Sufi. Vaishnava and Sufi. Sufi is Islamic mysticism which enunciates the doctrine of divine love. So, uh, Muslims and Hindu saint poets of rural Bengal, known as Bauls, created oral poetry of divine intoxication under the influence of both Vaishnav and Sufi philosophy. Medieval Muslim Bengali poets like Daulat Kaji and Sayyid Alaul they were of 17th century, wrote narrative poems based on sophistic philosophy, betraying a happy cultural and religious synthesis of Islam and Hinduism. Bhakti became an excellent platform for Hindu-Muslim unity. Kabir is the foremost among the poets of the saint tradition or Sant tradition. Saint tradition believes in faith in one omnipresent God and not in many gods like Rama and Krishna. So they were from the Nirgun Dhara. Kabir's poetry touches upon the various aspects of devotion, mysticism, and social reforms. Tulsidas, who was born in 1532 AD, was the greatest of the Rama Bhakti poets, who wrote his famous epic, the Ramacharitmanas, stories like the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, received a rebirth in the new languages. These languages gave a fresh life, a renewed relevance, and a meaningful reincarnation to the great Sanskrit epics, and these epics in their turn provided substance and style to the new languages too. Kamban in Tamil, Kritibas Ojha in Bengali, Sarla Das in Odia, Ejit Tachan in Malayalam, Tulsidas in Hindi, and Nannaya in Telugu are well known uh, writers who wrote Ramayana in their own language. Muslim poets like Malik Muhammad Jaisi, Ras Khan, Rahim, and other wrote Sufi and Vaisnava poetry. The religious and cultural synthesis that was a unique feature of medieval India finds abundant expression in its literature. The Islamic element is all pervasive, next only to the Upanishadic Hindu portion. Nanak, the first Sikh Guru, wrote in many languages, but mostly in Punjabi, and was a great poet of inter-religious communication. Nanak says, truth is supreme, but the above fact is truthful living. Guru Nanak and other Sikh Gurus belong to the Sant tradition, which believes in one omnipresent God and not in many gods like Rama and Krishna. The poetry of the Sikh Gurus is collected in Guru Granth Sahib, a multilingual text which talks about the unchanging one reality, and that is Sat. The cosmic law, Hukum, meditation, Satnam, compassion and harmony, Daya and Santosh. Bulle Shah, the most famous Muslim Punjabi poet, popularized Sufism through Punjabi Kafi. Kafi is a kind of verse form. Shah Latif, the famous Sindhi Muslim poet, was born in 1689 AD. In his sacred work, Risalo, explained Sufi mystic love as the divine truth. The contribution of women writers in different languages during that period deserves special attention. Women writers like Ghosa, Lopamudra, Gargi, Maitreyi, Apala, Romasa, Brahmavadini, etc., right from the days of the Vedas, 3000 BC to 1500 BC, focused on the image of women in mainstream Sanskrit literature. The songs of Buddhist nuns, written around 6th century BC, like Mutta and Ubiri and Metika in Pali, express the torment of feelings for the life left behind. The Alvar women poets, almost around 6th century AD, like Andal and others, gave expression to their love for the divine. Larded was born in 1320 and died in 1384. The Muslim poetess from Kashmir, Larded and Habba Khatun, represented the Sant tradition, saint tradition of Bhakti and wrote works. Works means maxims, which are peerless gems of spiritual experience. Avayyar in Tamil and Akka Mahadevi in Kannada are well known for their sheer lyrical intensity and concentrated emotional appeal. Their writings speak to us about the social conditions prevailing at that time and the position of a woman at home and in society. My paper and my this lecture actually focuses on these favorite bhakti poets and movements to explore their epistemic contribution in the making of the Indian society, which could still be the solution for the contemporary social problems, or which can just show the path for the evolvement of the Indian path to the uh, path to the evolvement of Indian society. A note of ecstasy marked Bhakti poetry, and hence it produced a creamy body of poetry born of born out of the heart. This new genre was introduced by the Nayanars, the Alvars, the Veer Saivas, and the Bhasa poets from different castes, regions, religions, and genders. The imagery of saint poets is grounded in the everyday, familiar language of ordinary people. Everyday lives of men and women appear in rich detail, and there is an emphasis on the life of the householder in their poetry. Their verses cultivate a rough hewn directness. They wrote up the obstacles of home, family tensions, the absent husband, meaningless household chores, and restrictions of married life, including their status as married women. They urge, chide, woo, and rage against God. In many cases, they reject traditional women's role to devote and worship their divine husbands. Namalwar. Namalwar was a poet, basically a Vaisnava poet, was born in 1800 80th century and passed away in 19 he was born in 880 AD and passed away in 930 AD. So Namallavar is the most beloved of all the Alvar poets, a Sudra with Brahmin disciples. Uh, he was from Sudra caste, uh, and he had Brahmin disciples. A Sudra with Brahmin disciples, he is said to have been a yogi from his birth. Namalvar. He composed a significant number of hymns, varied in style and substance. Namallavar strikes on the hypocrisy of caste. I quote, the four ranks uphold all clans, go down, far down, to the lowliest outcasts of outcasts. If they are the intimate, if they are the intimate henchmen of our Lord, with the wheel in his right hand, his body dark as blue sapphire. Unquote. Basavanna. He was born in 1161. Basavanna, the 12th century saint poet from Karnataka, was arguably the most radical of all Bhakti poets. Regarding caste, as Godwin Siri writes, I quote, Basava's identification with untouchables was unreserved and knew no bounds. We see how uncomfortable he was feeling within himself because of his Brahmin roots. I have had my birth in this obnoxious caste. Is this my lot? He lamented in an eager bid to identify himself with Dalits and Siva Bhaktas of Dalit origin. He claimed that he was born in a Dalit family. He declared that he was very proud and grateful to be part of the Siva Bhakta cobbler Chennaiya's family. He claimed that cobbler Chennaiya was his spiritual guru who had washed off his dirt, the tent of caste. Basava himself still excites ideas of equality. A play by Girish Karnad, Tale Danda, which was written in 1993, concerns the marriage of a Brahmin and an untouchable under the care of Basava and the terrible punishment that ensues. There are some of Basavanna's poems that have been translated into English that tells of his attitude towards caste. A fragment of one is, before quoting from his poem, I would explain Taladanda of Girish Karnad. Girish Karnad was one of the most talented playwrights of India. Basically, he was a mathematician, but he had deep love for literature and art. He was a great actor also. So Taledanda is his play, which was written in 1993, and which is about the life of Basavanna, who is known as Basaveswar, who began this Lingayat sect, which aspires to be a religion. Uh, People consider it as a religion, but it has not been given the status of a religion yet. But it is considered as a separate religion. I quote from his poem. It is said, "A man is born a Sudra. He becomes twice born by his deeds. He becomes a scholar by his lore. He becomes a Brahmin who walks the Brahmin way. It is said, the man in whom there is no Brahma is low born. The man in whom there is no Brahma is low born." Brahma means the ultimate reality. Therefore, O Lord of the meeting river, he is referring to Lord Shiva. Therefore, O Lord of the meeting river, I mean, the Brahmin is the ass who carries the Veda as a load. Unquote. Janabai. Janabai was born in 14th century. The servant of Namdev, Janabai, wrote an abhanga that is illustrated on large posters sold during pilgrimage time and which indicates Vithoba's love for all his disciples. I quote, "My Vitthal has many children. With him is a merry crowd. Nivritti rides on his shoulder. He holds open by the hand. Gyaneswar walks in front. Beautiful Muktabai close behind. Gora, the potter, rides his hip. Chokha in his very heart. Banka clings to his waist. Nama holds his smallest finger. Jani says, means Janabai. Janabai says, O Gopala, it is a festival of your dear ones. Unquote. After Janabai, I moved to Kanakdas. Kanakdas, basically, he was a 16th century Bhakti poet, was born in Karnataka, and I have been to Pandharpur also, where is the temple of Vithoba, and that is in Solapur district. I have been to Kaginele also, where Kanakdas was born, and there is a great monastery in memory of Kanakdas. So I visited that place. So Kanakdas was a 16th century poet born in Karnataka. The 16th century poet Kanakdas was low caste but not untouchable. Actually, he was from a Sephard caste, Sephard community. He wrote boldly of many matters, and the following song is about Kula. Kula means lineage, which may be translated as family, community, or caste. I quote, Kanakdas says that they talk of Kula, they talk of Kul, times without number. Pray, tell me what the Kul of men who have felt real bliss is. When a lotus is born in the mire, do they not bring it and offer it to the Almighty? Do not the gods of the earth drink the milk which comes from the flesh of the cow? Do they not besmear their bodies with deer musk? What is the caste of God Narayana and Shiva? What is the caste of Atma and Jiva? Why talk of Kul when God has blessed you? Unquote. Then after I moved to Kabir. Kabir was a 15th century poet, was born in Benares. Linda Hess, who is a great authority on Kabir, Linda Hess has translated a song by Kabir, which shows that the iconoclastic Kabir has proved radical equality, not only of all people, but of all substances and interactions. The 8400,000 vessels represent the traditional number of lives an individual must live before he or she can attain salvation. Maya is, of course, here illusion. I quote, Pandit, look in your heart for knowledge. Tell me where untouchability came from, since you believe in it. Mix red juice, white juice, and air. A body bakes in an organization. As soon as the 80 lotuses say are ready, it comes into the world. Then what is untouchable? 8,400,000 vessels decay into dust, while the potter keeps slapping clay on the wheel and with a touch cuts each one off. We eat by touching, we eat by touching, we wash by moving from a touch. The world was born. So who is untouched? Asks Kabir. Only he who has no tint of Maya. After Kabir, I take up Tukaram. Tukaram was the most beloved saint poet of Maharashtra, wrote hundreds of Abhangas, many of which were anti-orthodoxy and anti-caste. Tukaram also inspired Shivaji Maharaj, a great warrior of Maharashtra. Tukaram, who is purified by the pride of Varna. Actually, I quote from his poem, Who is purified by the pride of Varna. I quote, tell me if you know. Hymns save untouchables to Hari. Legendary stories become their bards. Tuladhar Vaisya, the part maker Gora, the leather worker Robidas, and the Momin Kabir, Latif the Muslim, the barber Sena are Vishnu Basis. Kanhopatra, Hodu, cotton carder Dadu, sing hymns to Hari without discard. Banka, Chokha Mela, by caste Mahar, have united with the Lord. What is the worth of Namaz Jani, whose does Pandhari's Lord eat in her company? Can you tell the lineage of Mariela? What greatness did he have to tell? Vishnu's servants have no caste. The Vedas signs so decrees. Unquote. Tuka says, which of your books have saved the fallen? I know of none. So, sorry, unquote. So Bhakti poetry reflects a wish to replace a social order based on all kinds of discrimination by a more human social order that is based on equality and humanity, which still gives inspiration and strength to the exploited and victimized masses of India. Contemporary Indian society is in deep crisis. The crisis is of more a cultural crisis than a socio-political one, because political warfare is now using cannonballs of culture only. This new politics is moving ahead, favored by the storms of religious fanaticism, narrow sectarianism, and anti-humanist tendencies, and it is destroying the heritage of broad-minded human values, social ideals, and cultural aspirations of the Bhakti movement. In this context, it becomes necessary to recognize the past relevance and present significance of Bhakti poetry. Bhakti poetry can help us to rise above the current crisis, as Bhakti poetry is woven into the life of the people even today, has woven into the life of the people even today. Therefore, it helps in creating the possibilities for an intimate dialogue with the masses. In contemporary Indian society, when the families are shrinking into nuclear families, human beings are becoming more individualistic, self centered, emotionless, and mechanical in nature. It is tough for an individual to evolve as a culturally sophisticated person. Most of the people are not conscious about the deterioration taking place around them, which is affecting their lives indirectly. This alienation and insensitivity is the root cause of suffering in the present Indian society. The world could be more culturally sophisticated when we evolve as a better being, better social order, and human civilization. The lives, messages, thinking, and writing of these magnificent beings could be of great help in saving the social, ethical, cultural, and spiritual degradation of the common masses of the society. Unless all sections of the community do not achieve equality, we could not save the nation from further cultural degradation and devastation. Kabir, Raidas gave the messages from through their poetry. They were all worldly people. who believed into household work as well as spiritual involvement. So Kabir said that he always made fun of hypocrisy and he said in one of his dohas, "तू जो ब्राह्मण ब्राह्मणी का जाया, आन बाट काहे नहीं आया." Means in Hindu caste order, all the women of the uh, Indian society are Sudras. They are considered as Sudra. So Kabir asked the question, "तू जो ब्राह्मण ब्राह्मणी का जाया, आन बाट काहे नहीं आया?" तुम जो you claim yourself as superior to everybody, superior to others, but you tell me from where you were born. You were born from the same place, same organ from where the others take birth. Radas also. Radas was a great spiritual person who came forward with a concept. The concept was of Begumpura, a place which was a place without sorrow. Begumpura, a place which has no gum. Gum means sorrow. So he has a kind of idea where he visualized to have a place where nobody will be considered, um, upper caste, lower caste. They will be given respect from their merit, personal individual merit. So Kabir also, Radas also made fun of this inhuman caste system. He said that you tell me. He said in one of his dohas, "जाति जाति में जात है जो केतन के पात, रैदास मानुस ना जुड़ सके जब तक जाति न जात." He identified caste system as an evil system. He said that how can a person be great because of taking birth in a particular family, and how can one be lower? How can one be of lower caste by taking birth in a poor family or in a particular family? So he said that this jati, this caste is a great problem. Unless we do away with this caste, we won't be able to evolve as a better society. So these are the problems. And he made fun of all types of hypocrisy. He said that you need not to go to take bath in Haridwar, Prayag for getting salvation. He said that man changa to kathauti mein ganga. Like if you are pure from within, then you take bath in a swimming pool or in your village pool. It doesn't matter. You will get salvation anyhow. Salvation is a mental state. So Radas tried to convince people, and he had the idea of having Begumpura. Kabir also had the same idea of Amar Deswa, where everybody will be tackled or considered equal. So equality was in the root of their thinking actually. So they wanted to have an equal world where everybody can have a beautiful life, no discrimination on the basis of caste, creed, and religion, and even gender. So Baswanna, he considered Chennaya as his guru, who was an untouchable, and Basveswar was a great social reformer. In Karnataka, Lingayat sect is a very big sect and it has a great population. Basveswar inspired people. All of them, all of his followers were from Sudra community, Sudras. They converted into uh, Lingayat sect, Lingayat religion, and they claimed themselves as the follower of Shiva, Lord Shiva. So they were the social reformers who helped us a lot. I mentioned in the very beginning that there were people who uh, from South India, like Jainism and Buddhism was on decline. Therefore, there was a Bhakti movement, and Alvars were the Vishnu, who they worshipped Lord Vishnu, and the Nayanars who they worshipped Lord Shiva. They took over. They sang, they there was a great saint called Appar, who was the follower of Lord Shiva. Uh, he inspired many people. So people came out of Buddhism and Jainism and joined this bhakti movement, and they liberated themselves. The bhakti movement of South India was on decline around 10th century AD. After that, after the invasion of the Turks, the North Indian bhakti movement took place. As I mentioned in my presentation lecture, actually the Brahmins and the Rajputs of North India were in the symbiotic relation with each other. They fulfilled the need of each other, and everything was going as per their wish. But the Turks attacked on India, and they opened a kind of opportunity for the lower caste. So the people were there, they were singing, they were having the same ideas, but they were suppressed. When the Turks became the rulers, they got an opportunity and their voices were heard. They became popular in the society, and gradually they had their own fan following. And people joined their sects, and some of them became the followers of Kabir, Raidas, and later in 1469, Guru Nanak Dev came, who gave the message of humanity to all, and he came forward with an idea of Sarvat da Bhala. He was a great social reformer, poet, and a great being. It is said that he traveled throughout his life 24,000 kilometers. So he came out with the idea of Sarvat da Bhala. Sarvat da Bhala means welfare of all, irrespective of their caste, creed, and religion. And he had learnt a lot from Sufi poets, Sufi saints. So basically, he learned majority of the things from the Sufi saints, and he implemented the concept of langar, where even the upper caste person and the lower caste person will sit together and have and dine together. So the concept of langar was the idea, was against the idea of caste hierarchy. So he indirectly broke that hierarchy and brought people together for a broader unity. He knew that caste is a kind of hurdle, and unless it exists, society cannot evolve. So Guru Nanak Dev, though born in a very rich family, but uh, he chose to uh, came out of his family wealth, and he chose to be an ascetic, to be a saint, and he spread his message across the globe. Actually, it is said that he traveled up to Haridwar, Prayag, and up to Makkah. And later, after the age of 53, he got settled in Kartarpur Sahib, which is in Pakistan today. And he had followers from Muslim and Hindu community, both the communities. And Sikhism was a religion based on the principles of Baba Guru Nanak. So they were all the saint poets who believed in Ek Onkar. He was a Nirgun saint poet, Nirgun social reformer, who believed in the idea of formless God. Um so, we had the Advaita philosophy of Sankar, then Visishtadvaita of Ramanuja, and Dvaita philosophy of Madhavacharya. Sankar theorized this idea, like there is no difference between the individual and the Brahma. They are both one. So Advaita, but it was more, it was very scholarly. It didn't appeal the common masses, though it has its own influence. But uh, but uh, but uh, it this the Sankar's Advaita Vedanta could not appeal a large number of people. But basically, this Bhakti movement poets actually they made their message is very popular just because of the simple and clear language and a simple messages also. And they said that you need not to go to the temple to worship the God. The God is within everybody's heart. So you have to explore the God within yourself. You need not to give. You need not to go to the temples and offer offer valuable things, golds and jewelries to the God. Actually, God is all giver, and you need not to give him anything. You worship wherever you are, and you will achieve whatever you aspire for or desire for. So this is the basically idea, and the Bhakti movement had its influence till 18th century, but uh, it got diffused. But even then, Bhakti movement is a kind of movement which always inspires us. It was a kind of cultural movement which will always be relevant, and the message of those bhakti poets like Kanak Das, Namallavar, uh, Basveswara, Nannaya, and then Kabir, Radas, Guru Nanak Dev, will always be relevant. So actually, this movement was a message to the masses that you can't evolve by keeping a kind of attitude of that uh, you're superior than somebody. So we have to do away with this kind of notion that somebody is superior and somebody is inferior. And the Bhakti movement clearly teaches us that we are all equal, and we can make this world beautiful by only subscribing to the idea of equality. Thank you very much. Varun.
Thank you very much, Yadav sir, for such an insightful and provocative session on Bhakti poetry. Your knowledge in the field of Bhakti poetry has truly left a prolific impression on us, as it is aptly said that Jaki Rahi Bhavana Jaisi, Prabhu Murat Dekhi Tin Taisi. I am sure everyone here has obtained new perspective to analyze, interpret, and evaluate this conception with your views. One could say that you have aptly projected yourself as a beacon of knowledge and wisdom, covering the poetries meticulously with precision from all over the country. If I put it in a nutshell, just mesmerized. Thank you very much, sir. Now
Thank
it
you.
is
If anybody has any question, can go and ask the question.
yes, sir. Now it is time for question answer session. If anyone has any kind of queries or question related to the illustrated topic, please feel free to put them in the YouTube comment section. So there is a question from Rambhi Divrania. How did the Bhakti movement contribute to women's empowerment in medieval India?
Yeah, Bhakti movement um, contributed a lot in the women empowerment. Actually, there was a famous poet. We had Mirabai, but we had Andal. Andal was actually the follower of Basveswara, and she worked for the empowerment. Actually, there is a huge. There are lots of names actually. Janabai, Bainabai. There were the basically the poets who talked about women empowerment, and this Guru Nanak's Sikh religion also talks about uh, gender empowerment, women empowerment. So Andal has written in all of his poems about women empowerment actually, and they are the symbol of um, women emancipation. They talked about the sufferings of the women. Lal did I mentioned in my Haba Khatun, I mentioned in my presentation. I mentioned many of the names actually, and they were from Muslim community from Kashmir. Lal did was a revolutionary poet. Um, so there is a huge number of women poets who talked about women empowerment. In fact, all the Bhakti Sen poets, they talked about women empowerment or gender injustice and gender justice. So actually, any individual who talks, who has progressive ideas, can't ignore or neglect the idea of women empowerment. Actually, because women and men both are important part of the society actually, and the men can't ignore the women can't ignore the men, and therefore women have been marginalized since the ages. And any progressive thinker or a saint poet knew this fact, that unless we do justice to this majority, to a bigger section, to this bigger section, we can't evolve as a society. And they identified this problem. They diagnosed this problem actually, and that's why they have written a lot about the women and their role in the making of the society. So actually, Bhakti movement contributed a lot actually in the field of women empowerment. Varun.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. The second question is from Deepa Rathod. She is asking, what is the role of psychology in bhakti?
There is psychology. The role of psychology is that be simple. Be simple. All the bhakti poets, sorry, all the bhakti poets, they gave importance to a simple living. And as Gandhiji, who talked about simple living and high thinking, he was a great follower of Narsi Mehta from Gujarat, that too from Junagadh, from your area. And your university is rightly named after him, Bhakta Kavi Narsi Mehta University. So Narsi Mehta, the bhajan, which has been translated into more than 250 languages. So that bhajan in itself is a great message actually. वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए पीड़ पराई जाने रे. So actually, वैष्णव जन तो तेने कहिए पीड़ पराई जाने रे are the poem written by Rabindranath Tagore, where the mind is without fear. Actually, that is the basically anthem of that is global anthem for humanity's sake actually, where the mind is without fear. We need a world where everybody is respected, where everybody has his own or her own say. Everybody is given their due respect. So role of psychology in bhakti, actually they gave importance to simple living. Kabir was a family man. He earned his living, and he said that you need not to go to Himalayas for worship, and you keep a very, you lead an ascetic life. You don't eat. You need not to do all these things. You can lead your family life, your worldly life, and be a saint. So they gave a very clear-cut message: lead a simple life. But their principle was love and brotherhood. So they said that with the help of these human qualities, you can evolve and help the whole society to evolve in a better society. So that's why Kabir, Raidas, Guru Nanak Dev, Basveshwar will always be relevant. Tiruvalluvar, Kanak Das will always be relevant. Narayan Guru will always be relevant. The role of psychology was that they never wanted to cheat the society. They wanted to. That's why they gave importance to truth. That's why Guru Nanak Dev said, "Ek Satnam." So the way Raidas looked for a Begumpura, a place where nobody will have any kind of suffering, Guru Nanak also aspired to have a place like Sachkhand. Kabir also dreamt of Amar Deswa, a place where like Narayan, R.K. Narayan dreamt of a place called Malgudi days. So in the same way, Kabir Das dreamt of a place called Amar Deswa. So he mentions in his poetry sometimes, at times, that we need to have an Amar Deswa where everybody is treated equal. So equality was in the root of their thinking. There was no psychology. Psychology was to uh, connect people and liberate them from all types of hypocrisy, and to bring them out of all regressive ideas. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. There are more questions I present to you. In Kiran Vadhia is asking that in which ways did Bhakti poets redefine the concept of devotion, and how does that differ from earlier Vedic traditions?
I mentioned in my presentation, my talk, that they said that you need not to go to the temples, you need not to go in for costly, offerings. You need not to go to the temples. That's why they didn't talk about temples and masjids. Kabir equally made fun of Hindu religion and Muslim religion. He said that you can just explore the God within yourself. So that was the message of the God is inside you. The God is inside you. You are the representative of God. So in that way, their message was clear. So they avoided any kind of pomp and show, any kind of elaborate rituals. Actually, they were against any elaborate ritual. So that was different from the Vedic tradition.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Hetvi Thanki is asking that in the Anglo-Saxon period, there were many poets who wrote hymns to the god that were majorly based on Bible. Can we find any similarities in those Western writings and Bhakti movement of India?
I don't think that actually those writings have any similarity with Bhakti poets, because Bhakti poetry was against all kinds of arts of the Indian society. Uh, while their poetry was they eulogized God in their poetry, which the person is mentioning about. So that's completely different. From my understanding, there is no connection between these two.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. There
Mm.
is another question from Krupali. What is the difference between Bhakti and religion?
Bhakti and religion. Actually, bhakti basically is without any rules and regulations. Bhakti is the individual. Bhakti. Uh, you know, Bhakti belongs to an individual effort or individual choice, actually. But religion is something which has its own system. As well as Bhakti was basically against, as I told you, against these rituals. Rituals means the religion has a kind of formal rituals, its own system, while the Bhakti could bhakti of each individual could be different from his or her own choice. So that is how bhakti is different from religion, and there could be many more points, actually, Varun.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. And the next question is from Bhargav Sindal. What is the enduring relevance of Bhakti poets' messages in modern Indian society?
The relevance of the bhakti poet, as I mentioned, you have to do away with the caste. You have to do away with religious discrimination. You have to do away with all types of discrimination. People when people in India are being discriminated on the basis of their religion, actually the diversity is the beauty of our country. So actually, Buddhism also said that apadipo bhava, like be their own, uh, be thy own light, actually. So apadipo bhava means explore yourself. In the same way, no religion teaches us to discriminate any other religion. Everybody has his own way of belief system and faith. So respect others' faith. That is the message of the bhakti poetry. The message of the bhakti poetry is that uh, take collective efforts to change yourself and the society also, because you do not exist in isolation. You exist in a society, in a state, in a country. Therefore, you have to think about others also. And moreover, it's a human duty that you have to take care of the people who are around you. So Bhakti poetry is very assimilative, inclusive, and it connects everybody. It doesn't discriminate with anyone. Guru Nanak Dev's idea of Sikhism is all about. He was from a Khatri caste actually. That's an upper caste, and but even then he revolted against Hinduism because he saw that the ordinary people could not afford the elaborate and very costly rituals which were taking its toll on poor people. So he offered a religion which included them, which doesn't discriminate. So the message of Basveswara initiated the marriage of a Dalit boy and the Brahmin girl, and there was a conflict in his kingdom. So anyhow, he wanted to do away with, to completely annihilate this kind of discrimination from the society, because he identified. And I read one poem, I quoted one poem where he mentions that Chennaya is my guru, and I was born as a Brahmin, but I want to be a human. Means where he laments to born as a Brahmin actually. So anybody who is a true human being, who wants to have a egalitarian society, will try to do away with um, all sorts of actually uh, uh, discriminative practices. Discriminatory practices. So the message of these poets is very clear. They will actually inspire this generation, the coming future generations, unless we work on these problems, which are still, still creating a kind of conflict in the Indian society, and which are still a kind of big problem. Caste is like a cancer, actually. It's a kind of networking system which works for the privileged, and which works against the underprivileged. Actually, it's a curse for the underprivileged and boon for the privileged. So it's a big problem. Caste is like cancer, as I mentioned just now. So in the same way, illiteracy, gender discrimination, take the example of women force participation in our economy. It's very low. Unless we respect women, unless we respect their efforts, unless we respect their uh, you know unless we respect themselves, sorry, them, we can't evolve as a society. So we have to overcome lots of things which are um, which are a kind of problem for this contemporary Indian society. So India has to work on this, and literature is no exception to it. So that's why Indian society is in problem, because after 1913 we don't have a Rabindranath Tagore who won Nobel. So it doesn't mean that Nobel is the certification for good literature, but we don't have good literature which can inspire the generations. So that is the problem. So we have to uh, the Bhakti poets. We have to read the Bhakti poets. That's why we should be thankful to A.K. Ramanujan, who worked a lot. We should be thankful to that person, Girish Karnad, who worked on Basveswara and wrote Taladanda. That's why culture is very important. And if we ignore culture, we ignore ourselves. So that is the problem. That is the crisis. So our roots are with the Bhakti poets, and their ideas are for the whole humanity, very assimilative, very inclusive, very just, very democratic, very egalitarian, very very cosmopolitan. So that's why the Bhakti poets will always be relevant, and that's why the Bhakti poets will keep on inspiring this generation and the coming generations.
Thank you very much, sir, for such an elaborative answer. There are a couple of more questions. Um, Astha Dhokia is asking, sir, my question is, did Bhakti movement help in removing the negative point of views regarding caste hierarchy, which you just elaborated?
Astha, to some extent, yeah, it worked. As I mentioned, like before the invasion of the Turks, actually there was a symbiotic relation with the Brahmins and the Rajputs in northern India, and actually that rule suppressed the voices of the marginalized, especially the other communities. But the moment the Turks invaded, the Rajputs shifted to the rural areas. That's why majority of the forts are made in the rural areas of Rajasthan, because they left the cities and they shifted to the remote jungle areas, and they constructed big forts and they stayed there for a long time. So the cities were occupied by the Turks, and those people came into the mainstream, and that's why their voices came into the mainstream society. So therefore, actually, it helped. It helped to some extent, and it will keep on helping. As Baba Sahib Bhimrao Ambedkar said that he was inspired by three people: Mahatma Buddha, um, Kabir, and then Mahatma Phule. And Mahatma Phule was given the title Mahatma by Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was given the title Mahatma by Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. So, Baba Sahib Bhimrao Ambedkar wrote a book. Actually, that was a kind of lecture which he had to deliver in Lahore for the Jati Path Todak Mandal, an lesson of caste. But that was inspired by the ideas of Raidas, Tathagat Buddha, Kabir, and Mahatma Phule. So, actually, it has helped to some extent, and it will keep on helping us because only on that path, only on trading on that path, we can just achieve some inclusivity and social justice. So, social justice is very important for any uh, society which is backward, for its involvement, for a society's involvement which is backward. So, it has helped. Dhokia. Yeah, it has helped.
Sir, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Varun.
Let's take the last question for this session, sir. Tell us, Rahul Chudasama is asking, tell us something about few Western writers who are influenced by the Bhakti poetries or Bhakti movement.
Writers could be many, but Herman Hesse is there. Herman Hesse is there. Linda Hesse, I mentioned, she was inspired by Kabir. I mentioned just now. I mentioned somebody else. There are lots of people, but I'm not able to recall them just now. But actually, Kabir has not Kabir only. As I told you, Tukaram inspired Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. So there are writers who have been inspired by these poets and thinkers and writers. Herman Hesse is there, Linda Hesse is there, and then you have many, but I remember just now A.K. Ramanujan. A.K. Ramanujan was from Tamil Nadu, but he taught in Chicago University. He translated a lot. He was a linguist, but there are writers who got inspired from the Bhakti poetry. George Orwell was there, but George Orwell was whether he was inspired by the Bhakti poets or not, I can't say, but their influence was there on world poetry. Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, actually, I tell you one thing. Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, who got Nobel in 1913, he was the first man to translate Kabir's Bijak, actually. He translated his Kabir's Bijak, got lots of wisdom from him while translating. And he wrote his Gitanjali, which earned him Nobel in 1913. So there is one example, but that is from India. But there are writers, but I'm not able to recall right now. Varun.
Yes, sir. E.M. Foster even appreciated to
You know,
India.
but we can't say that he was inspired by the Bhakti poets or
Yes,
Bhakti
sir.
writers.
Yes, sir.
Mm.
Okay, thank you
There are
very much,
lots of.
sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for satisfying the queries of the students in such a elaborative manner. Now, with your permission, shall we end the session?
Yes, Varun, thank you very much. It was a nice experience to talk with you. Thank you.
Sir, on behalf of the members of Dr. A.K. Singh Literary Club and the Department of English Bhaktakavi Narsimha Mehta University, Junagadh, I extend my sincere and deepest gratitude to Dr. Sandeep Kumar Yadav for his inspiring expert talk. Sir, thank you again for giving us your precious time. On behalf of the department, I am also thankful to the online audience as well. Have a wonderful day. Let's grow and educate together. Thank you.